Think global, act local in your settlement. The sovereign element, farmers, growers, and residents. Clean, lean, green development. The sovereign element.
The Marijuana Tax Act dismantled the United States hemp industry. By J.L. Gallion, Sovereign Element, February 13th, 2013. The Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 was skillfully crafted and executed by a cast of players with the intent of capitalizing on special interests by the few, for the few. The action was taken to stifle an industry and a cash crop by deceptively claiming it was merely about generating tax revenue during tough economic times. There was no societal or cultural drug problem in the 1920s and 30s. The war on drugs was non-existent. It was the Great Depression, and the United States was yet to get into World War II. By all records available to the public, it appears the U.S. Department of the Treasury created the Bureau of Narcotics, and together, these government agencies, under the direction of corporatists, wrote the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 and then lobbied Congress to pass it into law. Andrew Mellon, one of the richest men in America at the time, an industrialist involved with lumber, aluminum, steel, banking, and the founder of Gulf Oil in 1901, was the Secretary of the Treasury who appointed his nephew-in-law, Harry Anslinger, to be Commissioner of the Bureau of Narcotics. The Marijuana Tax Act was allegedly drafted and passed by the 75th Congress to restrict recreational use. However, hemp ended up being jeopardized and falsely persecuted under the law as well, and likewise halted most research and development connected to the fibrous plant called cannabis. There was a government propaganda and smear campaign against hemp beginning in the 1930s with the release of the film Reefer Madness. One of the largest and most influential publishers of the time, William Randolph Hearst, was engaging in a systematic campaign of his own yellow journalism, castigating cannabis as a dangerous drug that causes violence, connecting this alleged violence to illegal immigrants and minorities. The Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 taxed every single person and/or entity that had any contact whatsoever with marijuana or hemp. Whether you were a grower, a distributor, a doctor, a veterinarian, a seller, a buyer, you had to pay a tax and file proper documentation for each and every transaction and every amount with the names and addresses of all involved with Internal Revenue under the direction of the Department of the Treasury. It is clear, whether conspiracy or coincidence, the Marijuana Tax Act was lobbied for and by the most rich and powerful industrialists of the day, specifically with interests in petrochemicals, oil and synthetics like nylon, plastics, fertilizer, and pesticides, not to mention the expanding pharmaceutical industry of the day. Arguably the most influential was Andrew Mellon, not only because of his personal business in aluminum, steel, and oil, and his banking interests that helped fund ventures by DuPont, for example, but because he was Secretary of the Treasury. As referenced at the beginning of this article, it was the Treasury that in fact created the Bureau of Narcotics, the predecessor of the current Drug Enforcement Agency. This was all orchestrated in tandem with Internal Revenue to restrict not only the production and manufacture of hemp and marijuana, but the plant's movement and possession. After over 70 years of demonization and persecution, prosecution, and imprisonment of millions of people for using a plant that grows naturally in the ground, it appears that these past forces of self-serving interests are coming to a stalemate. We have seen the consequences resulting from the petrochemical industry around the world and the devastation it has caused in the environment, the economy, and in the health and well-being of the people. It is time to roll back this harmful obstruction and obfuscation of freedom to bring back sustainability, a sense of obligation to each other and to the planet. We need leaders who serve the people and their well-being over the greed and self-serving corporate interests of profit by any means.
Think global, act local in your settlement. The sovereign element, farmers, growers, and residents. Clean, lean, green development. A sovereign element.